The rain was falling in hard, uneven sheets, slapping against the cracked asphalt of the quiet highway as though trying to wake it from a bad dream. It was the kind of night that made even engines sound nervous, and the roar of approaching motorcycles cut through the storm like thunder with purpose. But the real lightning strike came when the lead biker spotted a lonely figure at the edge of the road, small, shivering, soaked in cold fear, and waving a trembling hand as though the world might disappear if she didn't catch someone's attention fast enough. The bikers slowed, swerved, then stopped. And before any of them could speak, before they could even remove their helmets, the girl's voice cracked through the storm like a cry torn from the depths of a breaking soul. "They took my mom," she screamed, breathless and desperate, her voice almost swallowed by the wind. "Please, someone help. They took her. They took my mom." And in that raw second, drenched in rain and terror, every biker froze, knowing instinctively that this wasn't just another roadside emergency. This was something darker, something urgent. Something that demanded courage they hadn't realized they would need that night. If you believe in kindness, bravery, and giving people second chance, please take a moment to like, comment, share, and subscribe. It helps stories like this reach more hearts who need them. The little girl's wheelchair was angled awkwardly on the muddy roadside, as though she had pushed herself with all the strength she had left. Tears mixed with rain as she pointed toward the forest that loomed on the opposite side of the highway, its branches shaking like frightened hands. The bikers exchanged quick glances, unsure, unprepared, but none of them was the kind of person who turned their back on a child in danger. The leader, a broad-shouldered man named Rowan, knelt beside her, lowering himself enough so his voice wouldn't startle her. The girl's name was Lily, and her words came out. Broken, rushed, tangled with fear. She explained, or tried to, that men had stormed into their home hours earlier. Her mother had hidden Lily first, whispering frantic promises that she would come back for her, but she never did. Lily had heard footsteps, shouts, and then a door slamming. When she managed to move herself out of hiding, she caught a glimpse of the men dragging her mother into a dark van, speeding toward the woods outside town. She had followed the highway in her wheelchair, pushing with everything she had, hoping anyone would stop. The bikers knew these woods. They also knew the kind of people who sometimes hid in them. Rowan's jaw tightened. A disabled girl alone in the rain, her mother taken by force, and the path leading into a forest known for abandoned structures and shady rumors. Nothing about this felt like something the police could get to fast enough. Rowan signaled his crew. Engines cut off. Flashlights out. No one questioned the mission. Lily needed them. With the storm pressing down like a thick, cold blanket, they advanced into the woods. The trees swallowed the highway in seconds, replacing it with the suffocating darkness. Every breath felt damp, every step uncertain. The bikers split into pairs, shining beams of light across branches and mud as Lily guided them from her wheelchair at the forest's edge, pointing with a trembling hand whenever she recognized something familiar from the direction the van had gone. Rowan took the lead further inside with two others, following deep tire tracks barely visible in the wet soil. The rain made everything look alive, shifting, whispering, but the tracks were unmistakable. They led toward the old ironworks facility, a place abandoned years ago after a structural collapse had injured several workers. Rowan had always thought it had a haunted, unfinished feel. Now, in the flickering storm, it looked like a place where nightmares went to hide. As they approached the broken front gates, Rowan motioned for silence. A dim, sickly glow pulsed through cracks in the building, as though someone had set up temporary lights inside. The bikers listened. Faint voices echoed sharp, angry voices followed by the distinct sound of something metallic being dragged. It didn't sound like workers. It didn't sound like anything good. Rowan's pulse fired faster. He whispered instructions, his voice low but steady. They would move carefully, quietly, and see what they were dealing with before bursting in blindly. Inside, the air smelled of rust and damp concrete. Water dripped rhythmically from the broken ceiling, forming dark puddles that reflected faint movements. The bikers pressed against walls, inching forward, and then they saw her, Lily's mother. She was tied to a metal post at the far end of the large room, wrists bound behind her back, mouth taped, head hung forward but trembling with life. Two men stood nearby, rummaging through a duffel bag. Their voices carried in harsh echoes, cursing about money, timing, and a third man who was apparently on his way. Rowan didn't know who these men were, but he understood their intent without needing full details. This wasn't a random kidnapping. This was deliberate, dangerous, and likely tied to something the mother had seen or known. Rowan's team scanned the room. 3 exits, 2 captors, 1 hostage, no weapons in the bikers' hands except pocket tools and adrenaline-fueled determination. But they had something the kidnappers didn't: numbers, surprise, and the weight of a child's desperate scream still burning in their minds. Water dripped. A pipe groaned. One of the men turned. Rowan struck first. The impact of his shoulder slam echoed like thunder as he tackled the first captor into a stack of rusted crates. The second man spun toward the commotion, flashlight beam cutting through dust, but 2 bikers were already on him, overpowering him. After a tense struggle that knocked over a tower of metal bars, the sound exploded through the warehouse, shaking loose dust and fear from every corner. The captors fought back tooth, nail, fury, but the bikers were fueled by something stronger: purpose. Within moments, the room fell still again, except for the heavy breathing of victory and the soft, muffled sob of the mother tied to the post. Rowan rushed to her, ripping off the tape, untying the ropes, steadying her before she collapsed. Her voice trembled in gratitude and panic as she asked about Lily, her daughter, alone, frightened, soaking in the storm. Rowan reassured her. The bikers were already guiding her out when headlights cut across the warehouse windows. The third man had arrived. His engine idled outside for a moment, then revved with a punch of impatience. Rowan signaled the others to move the mother into a shadowed area behind a fallen support beam while he approached a small gap between the boards to peek out. The driver was tall, built like someone who lived for intimidation, and he stepped out of his car with a sense of ownership over the danger he carried. He walked toward the entrance, muttering curses about incompetence and finishing the job. The rain outside rumbled. Inside, breaths froze. Rowan knew another confrontation was inevitable, but before the stranger entered fully, a sound cut through the storm, a tiny, wheeled clatter traveling through wet leaves. Lily, she had followed them. Rowan's chest tightened. He bolted toward the exit, emerging into the storm just in time to see Lily's wheelchair stuck in the mud, her hands pushing desperately as she screamed for her mother. The third captor spun around at the sound, his stare locked on Lily, and something in his expression darkened recognition, twisted with frustration. He took a step toward her. Rowan didn't think. He launched himself forward, hitting the man from the side with all the momentum the storm could lend him. They crashed into the mud, fists swinging, limbs colliding, rain blurring every movement. The other rushed in, but the man was stronger than the previous 2. He fought with the kind of ferocity that came from knowing the consequences of failure were much worse than the fight itself. The struggle raged with raw intensity. Mud splashed. Bones struck. Breath tore. Finally, after what felt like a full minute of chaos, Rowan landed a decisive blow that sent the man sprawling unconscious into the mud. Lily watched, tears mixing with rain, hands pressed hard against her chest. When Rowan turned to her, soaked, bruised, panting, she whispered in a small, cracked voice, "Is my mom okay?" Rowan nodded, lifting her wheelchair out of the thick mud. "She's safe," he assured her. And Lily's face, despite the storm, the terror, the weight of the night, broke into the first fragile expression of hope. The bikers reunited mother and daughter under the broken shelter of the ironworks awning. The moment the mother saw Lily, she fell to her knees, wrapping her arms around her child with a strength fueled by pure love and relief. Lily pressed her face into her mother's shoulder, crying in the raw, unfiltered way children cry when the world becomes too big and then suddenly small again. They clung to each other as though the storm couldn't touch them now. Not after everything that had been taken, fought for, and reclaimed. But the night wasn't over. The bikers called the authorities, making sure the 3 men were restrained until officers could arrive. They provided statements, explained what they had seen, and ensured Lily's mother would be taken to a safe place where she wouldn't have to fear shadows and strange footsteps anymore. As paramedics examined them, Rowan stayed close, watching Lily with a protective eye. The girl looked exhausted, but she also looked braver than anyone her age should have to be. When she glanced back at Rowan, she mouthed a silent thank you, her small hands gripping her mother's with renewed strength. As the chaos began to settle, one officer asked Lily's mother why the men had targeted her. With trembling hands, she explained that she had accidentally witnessed something earlier, something involving illegal deals and faces she wasn't supposed to see. She had tried to stay quiet, hoping it would pass, but the men found her, and they would have succeeded. If not for the bikers who chose compassion over convenience on a storm-drenched highway, the night slowly gave way to a grey morning haze, the storm easing into a tired drizzle. The bikers stayed until they knew Lily and her mother were safe, until the officers loaded the captors into vehicles and drove them away until the ironworks felt like nothing more than a broken skeleton of old nightmares instead of a stage for a new one. Hours later, as the sun finally broke through the clouds, Lily and her mother were transported to a temporary shelter arranged by the authorities. Rowan and his crew followed to help them settle, refusing to ride away without making sure the two had everything. They needed food, blankets, dry clothes, and a sense of safety they had been robbed of overnight. At the shelter, Lily held Rowan's worn leather glove in her hand, tiny fingers brushing the rough stitching. She looked up at him, and in a soft voice, still recovering from fear, asked why he had stopped for her when others had passed without noticing. Rowan thought for a moment, then answered with simple honesty. "Sometimes life puts people in your path for a reason," he said. "Sometimes you're meant to stop not because you're a hero, but because it's the decent thing to do." Lily nodded, her eyes glimmering with a deep understanding far beyond her age. Days passed. The bikers kept checking on them, making sure Lily's mother could attend court hearings safely, helping repair the damage done to their small home, and ensuring the girl never again felt alone in a world too big for her wheelchair. The bond between the group and the little family grew naturally, as though forged by the storm itself. Lily's courage inspired them, her mother's resilience moved them, and the night they had all survived together became a reminder that good people, ordinary people, could still rise to extraordinary moments when someone needed them most. In time, Lily learned to smile more easily again. She decorated her wheelchair with bright ribbons gifted by the biker group, and she insisted each color represented one of them: strength, courage, kindness, loyalty, and hope. Rowan became like an uncle to her, stopping by often with stories from the road that made her laugh. The bikers helped build a ramp for her home, repaired the broken porch, and even arranged regular community visits to make sure the mother and daughter never felt isolated again. What had begun as a night of terror became the spark that lit a small, unexpected family into existence. And though life didn't suddenly become perfect, disabilities didn't vanish. Trauma didn't erase itself. Fears didn't magically disappear. Lily and her mother faced each new day knowing they had people who cared about them, people who showed up in the darkest moment and stayed in the light afterward. If this story touched your heart, please don't forget to like, comment, share, and subscribe. Your engagement helps us keep bringing real, emotional stories to those who need them. Before the ending, please comment below. What would you have done if you had been the biker that night? As for Lily and her mother, their lives moved forward with new strength. The memory of the storm never fully faded, but it changed shape from a symbol of fear into a symbol of survival, compassion, and unexpected heroes on two wheels who refused to drive past to cry for help. And every time Lily watched the bikers roll down her street to visit, she would close her eyes, press a hand over her heart, and whisper the word she had learned to believe again: there is still goodness in this world. And sometimes that goodness comes roaring down the highway in the middle of a storm, just when you need it most.